America has built the most expensive weapon in human history, a project so vast, so ambitious, it carries a price tag of $1.7 trillion. That's more than the GDP of entire nations. And here's the catch. It's not just a weapon. It's a symbol of power, politics, and promises. But what exactly is this trillion-dollar machine? Why did it take decades to build? And why do experts call it both a marvel and a disaster? Stay with us, because by the end of this story, you'll understand why the F-35 fighter jet is one of the most controversial weapons ever made, and why its legacy could shape the future of war itself. The birth of a trillion-dollar idea. The story begins in the 1990s. The Cold War had ended, but America wanted a new fighter jet, one that could replace multiple aircraft at once. The vision? A single jet that could do it all. Stealth missions, dogfights, bombing runs, even vertical takeoffs. This dream became the Joint Strike Fighter program, and the chosen design? The F-35 Lightning II. It wasn't just a plane, it was supposed to be the future of air combat, a jet that could dominate the skies for decades. But here's the problem. When you try to build one plane that does everything, you risk building a plane that does nothing perfectly. The price tag. At first, the F-35 seemed affordable. The Pentagon promised efficiency, one jet for the Air Force, in Navy and Marines. But costs spiraled out of control. Today, the program's lifetime cost is estimated at $1.7 trillion. That includes development, production, and maintenance. To put that in perspective, that's more than the entire Apollo program that put humans on the moon. More than the GDP of countries like Australia or Spain. Enough to give every American a check for over $5,000. And yet, despite the staggering costs, critics argue the F-35 still struggles with basic reliability. The technology. The F-35 is packed with cutting-edge technology. It's stealthy, designed to avoid radar detection. Its helmet gives pilots a 360-degree view, projecting data directly onto the visor. It can carry advanced missiles, drop precision bombs, and even land vertically on aircraft carriers. But here's the catch. All this technology makes the jet incredibly complex. And complexity often means problems. Reports show the F-35 has faced software glitches, engine issues, and maintenance nightmares. At one point, the fleet's readiness rate was below 50%. That means half the jets couldn't even fly when needed. The variants. The F-35 isn't just one jet. It comes in three versions. F-35A, the Air Force's conventional takeoff and landing model. F-35B, the Marine Corps' short takeoff and vertical landing version. F-35C, the Navy's carrier-based model with larger wings. Each variant was designed to meet unique needs. But building three versions of one jet added enormous complexity and cost. The contractors. Behind the F-35 is Lockheed Martin, America's largest defense contractor. But dozens of companies are involved. Pratt & Whitney builds the engines, Northrop Grumman supplies radar systems, and BAE Systems contributes avionics. This web of contractors spreads jobs across the U.S. and allied nations. It also makes the program politically untouchable. Cutting the F-35 would mean cutting thousands of jobs. The global impact. Despite its flaws, the F-35 has become a global phenomenon. Over a dozen countries have bought it, including allies like the UK, Japan, and Israel. For America, the jet isn't just about defense, it's about influence. Selling the F-35 ties nations closer to U.S. military power. But critics warn this creates dependency. Countries spend billions on a jet they can't maintain without American support. And then there's the arms race. As the U.S. builds the F-35, rivals like China and Russia rush to develop their own stealth fighters. The skies are becoming a battlefield of technology. Before we go deeper, let's pause. If you're finding this story eye-opening, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. It helps us bring you more investigations like this. and drop a comment. Do you think the F-35 is worth the cost, or is it a trillion-dollar mistake? Now back to the story, the politics. The F-35 isn't just a weapon, it's a political machine. The program supports jobs in nearly every U.S. state. That means politicians fight to protect it, even when costs rise. Cutting the F-35 would mean cutting jobs, and no politician wants that. This makes the jet almost untouchable. Critics call it too big to fail. Even if it doesn't work perfectly, it's locked into America's military future. The criticism. Military analysts have raised tough questions. Is the F-35 truly superior to older jets like the F-16? Can it outperform rivals like China's J-20 or Russia's Su-57? Or is it simply too expensive to matter? Some pilots praise its stealth and sensors. Others complain it's sluggish in dogfights. One analyst joked, "The F-35 is like a Ferrari that spends half its life in the repair shop." Funny, yes, but also terrifying when you realize this is supposed to be America's frontline fighter. Accidents and reliability. The F-35 has suffered accidents and malfunctions. Engine fires, crashes, and software failures have raised concerns. In one case, a pilot's oxygen system malfunctioned mid-flight. In another, the jet's stealth coating peeled off during high-speed maneuvers. These incidents fueled the debate. Is the F-35 truly combat-ready? Training and pilots. Flying the F-35 isn't simple. Pilots undergo extensive training to master its systems. The helmet alone costs $400,000 and requires calibration to each pilot's eyes. Some pilots praise the jet's situational awareness. Others say the learning curve is steep and the jet's complexity can overwhelm even experienced aviators. International controversies. Not all allies are happy. Turkey was expelled from the program after buying Russian missile systems. Other nations complain about delays, costs, and restrictions on technology sharing. Meanwhile, countries like Israel have used the F-35 in combat, striking targets in Syria. These missions prove the jet's capabilities, but also raise geopolitical tensions. Historical comparisons. To understand the F-35, compare it to past programs. The F-22 Raptor, another stealth jet, was praised for performance but canceled after fewer than 200 units due to cost. The B-2 Spirit bomber faced similar criticism in the 1990s. Advanced, stealthy, but astronomically expensive. The F-35 continues this tradition, cutting-edge technology at a price that shocks even military planners. The economics of war. The F-35 isn't just about combat, it's about economics. Defense budgets shape economies, and the F-35 program funnels billions into contractors, suppliers, and local communities. Supporters argue this creates jobs and strengthens industry. Critics say it's a drain on resources that could fund schools, healthcare, or infrastructure. The future of air combat. The F-35 is part of a bigger picture, the rise of sixth-generation fighters. Programs like the U.S. Next Generation Air Dominance Project aim to build jets that surpass the F-35. But lessons from the F-35 will shape these future designs. Will they avoid the same pitfalls, or repeat them on an even larger scale? Cultural impact. The F-35 isn't just a weapon, it's a cultural icon. It appears in movies, video games, and documentaries. It's marketed as the pinnacle of modern air power. But this visibility also fuels criticism. Some see it as propaganda, glorifying a jet that may not live up to its hype. Geopolitical dimensions. The F-35 reshapes alliances. Nations that buy it gain access to U.S. technology, but also tie their defense strategies to Washington. In Asia, Japan and South Korea see the F-35 as a counter to China's growing power. In Europe, NATO members rely on it to modernize their air forces. But this dependence raises questions. What happens if America changes its policies? The terrifying truth. So why is the F-35 terrifying? Not because it's perfect, but because it shows how far nations will go and how much they'll spend to dominate the skies. It's terrifying because it locks the world into an arms race worth trillions, because it ties allies into America's orbit, and because it proves that in modern war, money and politics can matter as much as missiles and bombs. The F-35 is more than a jet. It's a symbol of power, ambition, and the dangerous future of warfare. What $1.7 trillion could have bought. To understand the scale, let's step back. What else could $1.7 trillion buy? You could fund universal healthcare in the US for years. You could rebuild America's entire infrastructure, roads, bridges, airports. You could finance multiple Mars missions and colonization projects. You could wipe out student debt for millions of Americans. Instead, that money went into a single weapons program. For supporters, that's an investment in security. For critics, it's a staggering misallocation of resources. The arms race effect. The F-35 doesn't exist in a vacuum. Its very presence accelerates global competition. China has poured billions into its J-20 stealth fighter, designed to counter the F-35. Russia promotes the Su-57, though production numbers remain low. Every time America sells the F-35 abroad, rivals feel pressure to respond. This cycle fuels an arms race where costs rise, tensions grow, and the risk of conflict increases. The human side. Behind the trillion-dollar headlines are real people. Pilots who train for years to master the jet. Engineers who spend careers solving its problems. Some pilots describe the F-35 as flying the future. They marvel at its sensors, its ability to see threats before they appear. Others admit frustration. Long waits for spare parts, missions canceled due to malfunctions. For maintainers, the jet is both a challenge and a headache. Its stealth coating requires delicate care. Its software demands constant updates. The human side reveals the paradox. Pride in cutting-edge technology, mixed with exhaustion from endless fixes. Lessons from history. History is full of ambitious weapons projects. The B-2 bomber, the F-22 Raptor, even the space shuttle, all promised revolutionary capabilities, all faced criticism for cost and complexity. The F-35 fits this pattern. It's a reminder that innovation often comes with setbacks, that ambition can outpace practicality, but it also shows something deeper. Nations are willing to spend unimaginable sums for even a slight edge in war. The future of war. The F-35 is not just about dogfights, it's about networks. The jet is designed to share data with other aircraft, ships, and ground forces. This makes it less a lone warrior and more a node in a digital battlefield. Future wars may be decided not by speed or firepower, but by who controls information. The F-35 is a glimpse of that future, where jets act as flying computers, gathering and distributing data in real time. Cultural impact. The F-35 has entered popular culture. It appears in films, video games, documentaries. It's marketed as the pinnacle of modern air power. But this visibility also fuels skepticism. Some see it as propaganda, glorifying a jet that may not live up to its hype. Others argue it's a symbol of waste, a cautionary tale dressed up as progress. Geopolitical dimensions. The jet reshapes alliances. Nations that buy it gain access to US technology, but also tie their defense strategies to Washington. In Asia, Japan and South Korea see the F-35 as a counter to China's growing power. In Europe, NATO members rely on it to modernize their air forces. But this dependence raises questions. What happens if America changes its policies? What if support is withdrawn? The F-35 binds allies tightly, but also makes them vulnerable. The debate that won't end. Supporters argue the F-35 is essential. They say it ensures US dominance, strengthens alliances, and prepares for future wars. Critics counter that it's bloated, unreliable, and a poor return on investment. This debate won't end soon, because the F-35 isn't just a jet, it's a trillion-dollar experiment in ambition, politics, and technology. If you made it this far, you now know the truth behind America's $1.7 trillion weapon. So here's the deal. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs to see it. And let us know in the comments, is the F-35 a triumph of technology or the biggest mistake in military history? Because one thing's for sure, the story of the F-35 is far from over.